All right, everyone. Donald Trump was handed a preliminary victory by the Supreme Court of the United States with regards to certain probationary federal employees. There are a number of people who are effectively slated to be fired, and they're called probationary employees. And so it's pretty self-evident that the government has the right to cut them loose. Nonetheless, unions got involved and said, no, you're not allowed to do that. You're never allowed to fire an employee, even if they're fucking up or something like that. The Supreme Court decided that the lower court decision that upheld that basic concept actually needed to be punted back down. So this is not a settled issue. The Supreme Court said, well, you don't really have standing to bring the case. That's the whole problem. If the union can't bring the actual case, then the case gets punted back down. You reconsider and try to figure out what the hell is going on. Now, the Supreme Court in the end might not actually side with the Trump administration. This would be an interesting case. It's entirely possible this was a 5-4 decision. The Supreme Court might say, indeed, Donald Trump does not have the right to fire these employees. The Trump administration does not have legal standing to do so. That is possible. I wouldn't think it terribly likely, though. I have a feeling that the Trump administration will prevail in this particular case. The Supreme Court might, in the end, have to weigh in again because of course now it's down back at the lower court level. The whole idea is simply about standing. So you can have, for example, a situation, and most people don't really know this, they don't understand it. You can have a situation in which somebody is aggrieved, but they don't have the legal standing to actually bring a case. And so the case may go absolutely nowhere simply because they're incapable of bringing the case before an actual court. This happens all the time to everyone except for the state. The state is always capable of bringing a case against you, namely. Other than that, though, you can have a situation where someone feels aggrieved, but then the court says, well, you don't have the legal standing to actually bring the case before the court. I can't consider this case. And it gets punted down to a lower level, or it gets dismissed out of hand, something like that. And that's what happened here. The reason why is because the unions representing some of these workers didn't have the proper legal paperwork to show that they had standing to bring the case in the first place. So SCOTUS didn't rule in favor of the Trump administration so much as it ruled against the original plaintiffs simply because they were not allowed to wage a case at all. So it is a tacit victory, but it is a temporary one because now what happens is it goes back down to the lower courts and it gets reconsidered on its merits effectively. And so you'll have to have different plaintiffs, a different aggrieved party has to come forward and say, hey, I want to sue the Trump administration, basically. It's going to be a very interesting case. It'll probably take many, many months to pan out. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this sort of case, because of the slow process of the federal court system, I wouldn't be surprised if it took upwards of a year. It might be next year before we get any closure on this case. It could very easily be that case. It wouldn't surprise me at all. The Supreme Court leans towards the Trump administration's general ideology. But in order for cases to proceed, and conservatives, by the way, need to understand this too, you have to have a party with standing to bring the case, and then you have to argue the merits of your case. So it doesn't matter if you're self-evidently right. If you don't file all the paperwork, dot the I's and cross the T's, you're screwed. If you don't have standing, even if you're aggrieved, you're screwed. That's sort of the way that the court system works. Does it make a whole lot of sense? No. In some of these cases, it's so self-evident that somebody's been aggrieved, that something wrong has been happening, that, the court should literally shrug its shoulders, roll its eyes, and say, look, this is pretty fucking obvious. The evidence is overwhelming. But they have to go through that legalese procedure. They have to be able to find that a party actually has standing. Now, in this particular case, who do I side with? I side with the Trump administration, and here's why. It is fairly self-evident that federal employees can be fired. They may be fired for effectively any purpose. The fact is, though, that many of them have unionized. Well, therein lies the problem, because the union won't allow you to fire them. They have collective bargaining rights and so forth. And they will picket, they will wage lawsuits. I would note again, when I was arguing about unions with Miss Burbank that one time, that was on Break the Rules podcast, I pointed out, I think that unions should be voluntary, but that's for the private sector. In the federal sector, it's a little bit different. I don't believe that they should be able to unionize at all. Federal workers should not be able to unionize, neither should state workers. Why? Because who is paying them? The taxpayers are funding their salaries directly. It's different from a private company. This is, of course, just my opinion. That's not actually the law of the land. And I pointed out, that's what I believe fundamentally. I don't see any problem with such a situation. So link in the description, archived of course, yes, Trump winning tacitly in front of SCOTUS, but the legal case will actually continue. So while it's a win, it's not a complete win. It's a general victory. You've won the battle, but you haven't won the war yet, in other words. That's about all. Peace out.